Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sip and Chat, where myself, Marlene, and my co host,
Hi, everyone. Miss Nexie
Miss
here.
Nexa.
Oh,
we
God,
have,
I
we,
missed that.
yeah, you know you love it. You know you come back every week, so I can say Miss Nexa, where we talk about trauma healing because that's a really big deal to myself, and I know it's a big deal to Miss Nexie too.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Mhm,
it is, Miss Marlene. But first of all, the
mhm.
question here is what are you sipping on, Miss Marlene? I beat you to it.
I came prepared for this.
Lord have mercy.
Look,
Oh, ooh, that looks
look
good. On my way, my friend, on my way.
at this.
It's too
Yeah.
cold for that for me.
See, Miss Nexie, we still have. I'm sorry, guys. Anybody who's listening in the background, I'm sorry. We're still at 74 degrees.
Oh,
I'm
I'm so
sorry.
sad. I'm so sad because I am in the nice sunny town and you guys are cold as heck. But I'm Miss Marlene, so I deserve that. I cannot complain, Miss Marlene. I cannot because today we had 81 degrees in Cali.
Oh,
But right
ooh.
now it's dropping. But this is the thing, Miss Marlene. It's like a few hours like nice and warm, and then at nighttime it just drops and you get so cold. So you don't know if you want to have the AC going or the heater going.
I know that well. Mhm.
Oh, she knows. Know it all. Know it all.
Okay, Miss Nexie, your turn, your turn, your turn.
Boring me and need to wake up me is having a nice cup of coffee.
Mm,
Verona, my favorite coffee. And I added a little bit of creamer that my daughter in law made. And it's pretty good. That's very,
mhm.
pretty good. But it's warm, keeping myself a little warm, cozy over here in my house. And that's pretty much it, Miss Marlene. Just a plain old cup of coffee.
Okay, that sounds good. Keep yourself warm and sip on that while we're having our conversation. Welcome everybody to the Sip and Chat. What are you guys sipping on in the background? Let me know that in the comment section. Okay.
Mm-mm.
So, Ms. Nexie, this is a topic, before we get started, we have to say, what is it? What are the YouTube things that we're supposed to say that, we're not therapists, we're not this, we're not that. All we do is share.
Our life experiences
Yes.
and how we deal with and work through trauma and trauma healing and all of that, but we're not advocates of go have therapy, spend hundreds and thousands of dollars in it, or don't go do. It's up to you. We were helped by therapy, and that's why we promote it for ourselves, not for anybody else. So disclaimer is we're not therapists, we're not psychologists, we're just two gals that like to talk a lot.
A lot.
And I have gone to a lot of trauma, and we have tried to heal from it so that we don't repeat the mistakes of our parents and family and
Mm,
siblings and stuff. So there you go.
I love that. Thank you so much for bringing that out, Miss Nexie, because you know, people have said, health for review and stuff. What qualifies you to give us help and therapy and all of those things?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I tell those people I'm not giving you. I don't think I have the patience, the to listen and to give you sound advice. I think I don't. I'm not cut for that type of. So I cannot give you. Right. I'm not. I'm talking about my experiences. If you don't like them, then hey, it's not on me. That's a you
Yes.
problem, as I say. It's a you
Yes.
problem, right? We discuss what we've gone through because even though we have healed from it, talking about it can help somebody else, and it helps us heal even more as we grow
Yes.
into, into new people, into something better than we were yesterday.
Yes. Healed people. I think
Hmm.
that's an important conversation. Okay, Miss Nexty. Now that that's out the way, let's get into how are we going to start this topic, because this is I don't think we've ever
Wait,
gone into anything like this before.
wait. What is our topic again? I'm sorry, I didn't read it.
Today's topic is children of war.
Yes. You know, I know, Miss Marlene, that you are very, very clear on that we don't talk politics.
Hmm.
In in your channels we don't talk politics, and I think you have even gone far enough to tell me, or with relatives or with
Yes.
best friends, you don't discuss politics with them. The reason why, and I knew that topic, I was just messing with you, but I just wanted to read it out loud so that we can get into it. The reason why I asked and I requested this, and I'm going to bring just a little bit off because of politics, because I have to get into what I'm going through right now. If
Okay.
that's okay with you.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Everybody, I am Miss Nexie. I'm Miss Marlene's co host. I am from El Salvador and I grew up there. And we lived in war for 12 years, a terrible war. I was very young, and it created a lot of trauma on my person. And I had to heal from that because I was so young that the impact that this created was a lot more damaging that I was willing to acknowledge or to know. Why am I saying this? Is because, again, we're not talking politics, but because of what's happening today in our country, and how crazy it is. And I don't mean in a bad way. I just mean, I haven't seen this before. So it's something new for me. I didn't expect this country to be the way it is. But we're going to move on with that. Because of that, I have been experiencing a lot of anxiety. I suffer from PTSD from the war. I've been experiencing a lot of anxiety. I have been experiencing a lot of sleepless nights. And I had no idea. And remember, I told you, Miss Marlene, I had no idea why I was backpedaling to, when I was anxiety ridden and I was not sleeping and I was not well. I had no idea. And so as we started talking with my therapist, he says that it's kind of because I haven't really faced the trauma. I have in a way, but I haven't, because I don't want to go there. Every time we do, I said, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. But because I haven't, I still have a lot of, in the back of my head memories, and I still have a lot of nervousness, anxiety. I'm still to this day very afraid of trusting people just from the get go. I have to first, get to know you a little bit and then maybe start trusting you. But I have been having a lot of this, and now that I'm going into this, is you found out I went back to therapy,
Yes.
and I am confronting this because what's going on in our country, even though, Miss Martin, I try not to watch the news, but we still get them on YouTube or sometimes on Facebook, which I don't visit as often, but I do get them. And then the news, sometimes I get them as I'm watching or as I'm scrolling through, and I stop and I listen. I'm like, oh my God, I got to stop this. But we started to go into details of why I was feeling this anxiety now. And I discovered that the the war in my country, again, I was young, and I wasn't a child baby, but I was young, probably getting close to my teens. And the war in my country began exactly like what's going on here, right? And
Mm,
he says that I probably was relating the things that I'm reading and the things that I'm listening to what happened. And I'm getting anxious and I'm getting no sleep and everything because I'm remembering how many times we had to, sleep on the floor and put the mattresses on top, because that's the one thing I have very, very vivid in my mind. I'm sorry, because we had to put them up so that, the pew 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 didn't go through our, if it went through our walls, the mattresses were going to cover. So a lot of these things that are happening right now is bringing out all this anxiety, all this not being able to sleep. And I had no idea that I still had that much um baggage in my mind, Miss Marlene, for my therapist. I thought I was just gonna go with an overnight bag.
yeah.
I
I,
came with the trunk.
Miss Nexie, we really don't know how traumatized we get until something happens and then your PTSD
It
kick.
triggers.
Yeah. Yep, you're
It
right.
triggers. And again, I'm not saying it because it's what's happening here, right? That we're not at war. And God, please save us from that. I'm not saying that, but what he's saying is that I'm correlating what happened, right? Between it and I'm finding myself, Miss Marlene, everywhere I walk, I have to look back. Every shadow, it's like it's creating this nervousness. I don't know, this really weird vibe in me. And so I've been, working with my therapist. We've been talking about, what happened, the family we lost, friends that have never been found, parents of our friends that we don't know what happened to them. So there's a lot of things that I was never going to deal with, according to me. I didn't
Mhm.
expect for this to come full circle now at this age of mine, which is 35, and I have a 38-year-old daughter. You know me, I'm 35.
Yeah, Miss Nexie. Well, you're old then because I'm 21 and up.
Yeah, Miss Marlene, but you don't have a 38-year-old daughter, do you? That you had before you were born. See, I'm a miracle here.
Wow.
And Miss
Yeah.
Marlene, a lot of times, growing up, the uncertainty that this creates, growing in a place like that, the um, the mistrust, the inability to feel safe, the inability to uh, form good friendships, even sometimes the ability to stay in connection with your family. It messes with you so much that you have to literally just di- desensitize from everyone, and I let me deal with it alone, because the worries I have, and the worst thing is that you cannot express them, right? Because if you say I'm afraid, somebody else tells you stop it, you can't be afraid, toughen up, even though you're a child. But all those things create a lot of anxiety, a lot of self-doubt. um, I never understood why, and I think you've said it before, why sometimes we start things but we don't finish them. And I never understood why, Miss Marlene. There were certain things that I had to do and I will start them, but I will procrastinate so much in getting it done. And when it was done, after all the struggle not to get it done, I will feel good, but then I'll feel guilty. Like, why didn't I get it done before? This should have been done months ago, years ago, whatever. And it's understandable, he was telling me, because it's the same thing, is that sometimes certain things remind you of why. And then you learn to live with, why am I going to go anywhere? I mean, I don't even know if I'm going to be here, if I'm going to be, what if I'm unalive during the night, or what if, and my war was 12 years, Miss Marley. And
Wow.
so he's telling me it's a lot of trauma that you haven't really put out in the open. And you have to do that. You have to confront it, because no matter where you live, where you go, this follows you. That little wounded child, that scared child is still in there. And I was like, that's crazy. No, 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 I'm okay. But, I just found myself so scared. I've been getting a lot of anxiety attacks, and they're becoming more and more and more often than none. And I had already achieved a very nice streak of, for months, I wouldn't get any anxiety. I will go places sometimes unknown to me, and I will be okay, not, anxious at all. I will actually be looking forward to. And so now I'm going back to feeling this weird way and not being able to sleep. And that's been happening more often. The night before, I slept nothing. I couldn't sleep. And yesterday I was all day so tired. My mind was so busy, so tired of trying to process everything that's going on and that's happening to me. And I crashed last night, right? But it's been happening. Sometimes I stay 2 days without sleep. So I've been going to my therapist 3 times a week now, because I need to make sure to tackle this. Because if not, my health is going to start suffering from all these things. Is Marlene, my state of mind, right? My soul, my spirit, everything suffers, because I have this much trauma in me. I don't
Miss
know if you
Nexie,
understand that.
Miss Nexie, can you tell us a little bit? You did say that there's people, of course, that you lost from the war. It's a lot of things, but those who have never been through anything like this before, can you kind of tell them what that looks like? If you can even put that into words, what does that look like to wake up after the war and your whole world has shifted?
The everyday, and this is it's true. You're correct. You're so correct. You're so right, Miss Marlene. I People don't know if they haven't gone through it. You wake up one day with two sides of a country divided and fighting against each other, right? To overthrow whatever. You find yourself, after that weekend on Mondays, not finding that your school has been closed because the country's at war. So right there, everything starts spinning. Then you find yourself losing a lot of friends to recruitment from either the the um, army, or the other side, right?
Mm,
Kids that didn't want to go or couldn't go because of age, they will still try to get them and train them. And so you find yourself without school, losing a lot of friends around you. And that's just the beginning. Then you find yourself hearing a lot of pew 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 all over the place. We used to live in the fourth floor of a building, so we're high up there. It was only 4 floors, but we're on the fourth floor, and we could see where the army was stationed. And so you can see, I was able to see and hear, all everything exploding, and the riots, and then you start knowing that, hey, guess what, there's nothing to eat, because right now we can't go out. We have to stay
mm,
in, because they send, sometimes they won't give you notice, like between this time, and then they start like establishing those blackouts, right? From 6 to 6 you cannot be on the streets. And so you start losing the liberty you had to be able to go out and play with friends. You're happy because you're home, you're not going to school, but you don't get yet what's happening. So then food becomes a shortage and we have to ration. You
Mm.
have parents that are worried. My sister, because she raised me, she was worried sick because we're in the thick of it. We were in the middle, Miss Marlene. We were able to see the army post in front of us, like it's right there. So we will be bombarded with a lot. And then some days it will say, hey, today is peace day, so you guys can go shop and do whatever. And then we will do that. And then in the middle of shopping, there will be another pew, 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 pew. And then everything will go. And I just remember my sister grabbing my hand and running to cover because they were just pew, 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 pewing everywhere. No,
Mm.
not thinking about people. And so all of those things, all of those thoughts that you cannot sleep because you can be asleep, and let's say you go to bed at 10 or 9 o'clock because you're a child. You go at 10, and by 1, 2 o'clock, the fire starts again, and boom, 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 and you can't sleep because you have to protect yourself. Put the mattresses up there, make sure that the pews don't go through and harm someone, unalive someone. And then you have to make sure that you're sheltering the kids because we freak out. We don't know what's going on, right? So it was 12 years of that. And then they will open the schools for a little bit and we will go have fun. And then all of a sudden they will be calling and on lockdown because they were fighting again. So it was never something that it was on like peaceful for months. It was never like that. It was constant going, 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 fighting, 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 fighting for 12 years until finally they came to an understanding. But we had to suffer a lot from lack of food. We were literally just eating rice and beans, if you want to think about it that way. When we had beans or when we had rice, we combined them. And then the stores were not open because if they were open, one side would go ransack, even sometimes unalive the people in there so they could take the food, so they could take it to their barracks or whatever. And then the army will come and say close because you're not supposed to be open. People are not supposed to be out and about right now because it's so it was a lot of that, Miss Marlene. A lot of times it cooped up inside your house. You didn't know when things were gonna break out. There will be uh, a lot of explosions in the middle of the day, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the afternoon. There was no when or how. It was just you had to be on alert every day, every time. Like you couldn't leave
Mm.
a life that you and I have here now. So you were in constant fear, in constant anxiety, and frustrated because you're a kid and you cannot play because you don't know what time this thing is going to start. So all of that for so many years, it accumulates on you, especially if you don't talk about it,
Mm.
right? If you don't talk about it. And then we had certain places that were more dangerous, that they will, go to the houses and take the young men out by force. And if they found out that somebody was whatever, they will go and unalive them. You know what I mean? Like we went through that a lot. So every time the door, when you somebody knocked at your door, your heart stopped because you didn't know what was going to
Mm.
happen. So we had to go through that a lot, and then we had to have family that will move with us because their territory had been destroyed. And so now it's not just the five of us, now is 10 of us in a small apartment. But you couldn't say
Mm.
no because everybody needed that space, the protection. And so neighbors sometimes will give the families like a couple of, like, you can sleep here, you can send four over here, three over there, whatever. But we were all trying to accommodate as much as we could. Now, the government, whatever they were doing, wasn't working. I don't know what they were doing, but they weren't thinking about the people or the harm that this was doing to the children of war.
Mm.
The psychological damage that this causes on a child is, it's something that you can never repair, you can never fix, because you're always vigilant, you're always at edge, you're always cautious, you're always thinking that in a minute everything's going to be destroyed. So you cannot get, I couldn't form attachments, Miss Marlene. And I'm very sorry for what I'm about to say, especially for my husband, because my ex-husband now. But when I got married, I wasn't attached. I couldn't. I was just there. If it worked, good, and if it didn't, oh well. That's how I was. I couldn't develop feelings for people because I was afraid that they were gonna be gone tomorrow. So I started therapy, Miss Marlene, because of that and because of my SA. You remember I said that before.
Mhm.
But so I dealt with the SA, but I didn't deal with the child of war because it was very difficult for me to go back to that time.
Wow. That is a lot to unpack. Um,
Sorry.
so no, no, don't be sorry, Miss Nexie. This is gonna be helpful to somebody. We never know when we have these conversations who it's going to reach.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and like we always say all the time, especially from the generation that we came from, where children were seen and not heard. You went through, and I can't even say traumatic. That's on a whole nother level to see and experience that, but not to have a free space to say, I I don't know how I feel. I'm scared. I'm fearful.
Mm.
All these things, and you're right. You take that into your adulthood.
Yeah, you do. You do, Miss Marlene. You're right. You do. And the thing here is not being able to voice your fears, because the first thing they will say, do not, because that's what they want. Don't be afraid. Be smart, be quiet, and toughen up, right? And you grow up with that. So what does is your heart starts becoming hard, and you take it as, I got to be strong, I got to be this, and nobody's going to make me suffer anymore, nobody's going to make me afraid, nobody's going to make me be in this type of situation ever again. Um and so but the damage that does even to our family, Miss Marlene, because when you see them after everything has been finished, done, and their peace times, whatever, you have to rebuild your entire household because there's holes huge everywhere, from ammunition, from this, from that. So you have to repair that. That's just a physical thing on the outside and the inside of a house. But you don't fix the biggest house and the most important house, which is the chamber of your heart.
Mm,
You continue on with life, just on going on. You start living life, Miss Marlene, when you are in a country of war, on a daily basis. And I don't mean that you guys in this country don't do that. No, we all do, right? Every day we live. But what I'm trying to say is that we have no future at sight. I had no future. I never thought of a future in my head. Even though I wanted to go to medical school, or even though I wanted to become a doctor, a pediatrician, because of what happened, I didn't see that anymore. It took it out of me. I didn't want to do it. I didn't care if it happened. University was a few steps from me, meaning becoming that, and I couldn't go because universities were closed. So everything that happens to you, when we say we lived on a daily basis, on a daily, just whatever happens today, we live like that because that was exactly what was happening, Miss Marlene. We could go to the store and get pew pew and our way over there because fire never ceased. They will only cease fire sometimes. Okay, they will talk to each other. Okay, we're gonna cease it. You guys can do, but you still alert, you still worried, right? What if this one doesn't respect it? What if somebody else? So we started living like that because sometimes we will have friends. We're gonna go to the store. You guys want anything? we'll never receive our groceries. We didn't know what happened. And then they told us, oh, it was unalive on our way over there. One of the buses got attacked by, you know, the extremists, and um, they 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 unalived them, or they took hostage the car, the bus or whatever, and or the car, and they unalived them somewhere else. So you start living like that, and you have no room for planning a future for it, because it's at the age when I went through this, imagination is developing, right? And I don't mean you don't develop it when you're little, I mean your adulthood imagination is developing. You start seeing yourself, in an office. You start seeing yourself working on people. You start seeing yourself having a family. You start seeing yourself, all of that gets erased. You don't see that anymore, and you don't want it. You don't crave it. You don't think of it. You don't, if it happens, oh well, if it doesn't. So you start living life that way. I'm not going to make any plans. I'm not going to do any of that. If it happens, good. If it doesn't, then I don't care. You start living life like that. And it's very sad because a lot of the people that, fought for us to cease all this war, a lot of the people that fought and gave their life for it, they probably were doing it for us to be able to dream again, right? To be able to um, achieve all the goals that we had. But at that point, it had been so long and dragged for so long that we had no more dreams.
Mm, Miss Nexie, I this is a topic where I'm lost for words, honestly. And I don't know why, but something that just came up in my mind was nobody really talks about the children that are the byproduct of, the soldiers that, when they come into the areas, they have they make babies, and then they go back to their country wherever they come from, and now you have this child who will never have their father,
Hmm.
and they're left behind. um I just I don't know. I don't know. That's something that just came to my mind, that think about the children that are a product of that, or the children that get left behind because their father has to go into war, and then maybe
Oh,
thinking about when are they coming back.
yeah. Or they get abandoned because, mom or dad gets out of there before knowing that what's going on, and they get out of there, but without taking the children. um this is very uncomfortable for me, because I'm touching a place that I had put, like I said, in the back of my mind. But I I I I said this to you the last time. I want to talk about this because I think it's important for us to understand. See, adults, we already grown. We can deal with whatever comes our way, right? We can just write it. We can just defend ourselves. We can do whatever. We understand what's going on. We can protect our heart and our mind, saying this is not forever, blah, blah. But a child cannot do that. Now, if a parent, if an aunt or an uncle doesn't reassure that child that yes, you're scared, but it's okay, I'm here, or this is not going to be forever, just be patient and this is going to end soon, right? When it comes to these things, I feel that if that would have been the case with me, it probably would have been a little bit different, or a lot different, I don't know. But growing up in a place like that, where there's no I'm going to bring something up, Miss Marlene, and I'm sorry that I'm going to do this, but we will sometimes have to walk and skip on top of unalive people on the streets because there were that many. At that age, the amount of trauma that that creates on you is I don't know, exponent. I don't even know. I don't even know what amount, how, or what does do to other people. But My I think my biggest thing, and the why it created such trauma for me, is because I had always wanted to go into a field of healing and helping people, and disrespecting people by jumping over them because we had no other choice. I think that's what was messing with me so much. And it wasn't even that they cared who it was and who it wasn't. They would just be okay in the morning, at night when we go to bed, and then all this chaos in the morning after, the fight. But that, seeing that, people like falling everywhere, and you have to continue your day putting that in the back of your mind and continue your day as if nothing happens. I think that's what heartens children, their little hearts and their fears, and why sometimes it explodes to a maximum as we get older. We start like, we become reclusive. We don't want noises. We don't want to be out and about. We are afraid of making connections and things like that. If A lot of times I hear people saying the trauma of that, but never, have heard a child, right? Heard it from a child's perspective. And I wanted to be that child today. I wanted to bring that child over to the front here, so that that child could express exactly what it felt. There were days that we had no milk, no food, none of that. And that, Miss Marlene, can create that hoarding. You know how people start buying and keeping and on a person as they get older because they had nothing. It can also make you, which, again, this is a child. My mentality was, when I get older, I'm gonna keep all of the food. I'm gonna even buy even more so that if anything happens, I'm gonna have extra food, because we were so hungry, right? And then, our clothes, we literally had to, my sister had to kind of sew it and stuff, because there wasn't any, we couldn't do anything about going to shopping. So it was faded out, whatever. And I'm thinking, when I get older, I'm going to buy a lot of stuff. I'm going to have a lot of clothes. If anything like this happens again, I'm going to have a lot of clothes. I'm going to have shoes because they don't fit anymore, but I'm going to get a lot of pairs, different sizes, because I thought my feet were going to continue to grow until I was like 100 years old. And so all of those things, Miss Marlene, you start making it so personal. Your childhood gets robbed.
Mm,
There's no such a thing as childhood. Your teenage years, if you're a teenager in that area, because I was in between, right? In the in betweens. Um, as a teenager, your opportunity to have a boyfriend, to go out to the park, to go out to eat, to do these things, enjoy dance, nothing, none of that, everything gets erased, and it gets robbed from you. You become a 11-year-old adult at that point, and sometimes literally taking care of the family while the adults went out scavenging to see what we can eat, because we had nothing else to do. So they will go and see if the store was open, and the lady will kind of like wait and find out who it was, and then she would just ask through the door, what do you want? And so they will go to different places, making sure that we had enough food for at least a couple of weeks, because you never knew when there were, Miss Marlene, there was a point that they went 6 weeks fighting without stopping.
mm,
And so we were the adults holding down the kids in the house, and making sure that if anybody knocks on the door, you don't say nothing. We will put our mattresses on top, and barricade ourselves inside, and don't make any noise. And you have little ones, like I was taking care of the little ones, and so you cannot let them cry. So, because you never know, sometimes the people, those men fighting, will come into the apartments and essay the people in there, all of them, and then unalive them, or take it. If they like one better, they will take them, and you never saw your child again, your daughter again. So my sister was like, don't open the door, nobody can enter, don't even make a noise, because that way they don't know that we're here. And they made us this little, it was like a gap, like a cabinet. It had like sliding doors, but it wasn't a cabinet, it was big, but it was kind of like a like a hidden room, that we, if we heard noise of somebody kicked the door, we had to run in there and just lock ourselves and not make any noise, because it looked like a piece of furniture designed to hold a TV and stuff like that. And so, we
Mm,
had to have all of that. And so you begin to develop that, the uncertainty of life at a very young age. You start learning how unreliable some people are at a very young age. You start learning, what loss is, again, at a very young age, when you're not understanding. You start um, understanding what being without food, being hungry, being worried, being stressed out, being without water for weeks. You start learning all of that at a very young age, and that affects you for the rest of your life. And,
yeah,
and, and not that I haven't healed them, Miss Marlene, but if I see someone in need, I do everything in my power to help. I don't care who it is. I don't care how long I have to help them, but I do that because I think about that time. And money for me, that's another thing, Miss Marlene, is this war was going on. I learned that money doesn't solve anything. Money is irrelevant in a time of war. And I mean that because I lived it. People that had money, they couldn't buy them food. They couldn't do anything with it. You know what I mean? And so I learned that money in a time of war wasn't important. What mattered was making sure that you stayed alive. That's all it
mhm,
matter. Even your family, yeah, you care, but the main thing in your head as a child, and I'm saying this as that little girl, is my mind was, I'm gonna stay alive. I have to stay alive. I don't know, I don't care what I have to do, but I have to stay alive. And it was a constant thing in my head, and that gives you this misconception that you're gonna die young because of this. It's such a horrible psychological thing that goes through you as a child of war, that people don't even begin to understand. If you haven't lived it and you're calling for it, you don't know what you're asking for.
yeah. You don't know the byproduct, how it affects people's mental, emotional, psychological, everything. And like people don't understand the reason why some people get so messed up with anxiety or become so paranoid. And you know, this topic really makes me think because I work in the medical field. I don't know what Miss Nexie wants to share, but I work in the medical field and I see people with issues, you know, with mental illness, and people will look at people and laugh, but you don't know what people have gone through as to why they are that way.
Exactly. Yeah, and this is what I tell people. I said, you don't understand. As an immigrant in this country, Miss Marlene, after living 12 years of this horrible, horrible environment, I love this country so much because it gave me the opportunity to come and do something with myself, right? Become someone. It gave me the opportunity to learn, to grow, to tackle my demons, as they say, right? And it made me the woman who I am today. That he has that peace and he has that reassurance of a good life here, and I have the ability to buy food, do whatever I want, be it at hours of the night, walking without somebody, having a curfew that if you're after 6, they don't respond, you can get killed right then. Oops, and alive right then and there. And I have that freedom here that I didn't experience for 12 years. And I obtained that when I was still young enough to be okay, and kind of like kind of save a little bit or salvage, if you want, a little bit of that peace and turn it around, of that turmoil, and turn around into peace. I did a little bit of that. But the one thing I had to work on from, the moment that I began going to school, is that I had to work on seeking therapy, seeking help. I didn't know if it was going to be therapy or if it was anything else. I didn't know. I just needed to find out through school, because I was going for a psychology major. I was going just to find out, just to learn, to understand my family. This is the thing, that why I was getting into um psychology, and to help my children, right? Understand what the family dynamics are. And it was there that, therapy was mandatory. And that's when I learned that this was working for me, because I was becoming less anxious. I was becoming more trusting. I was becoming more optimistic, because optimism leaves you when you live in a country like that. So I came and I was learning all of that. And and I've lived an amazing life here. I've created a beautiful family, an amazing life for me and my kids, and I'm okay. Right, I'm okay after everything that we went through. But as of this year, I have been so paranoid. All those feelings of uncertainty, of anxiety, of fear for what can happen if you trigger the wrong person, that know that I'm going to see all of my people here going through things that they have no idea can happen in a place, or in a war like that. It's, all that has been triggering so much on me, Miss Marlene. I went on a camping trip. You remember, I did it because I was getting, doctor said, get out, go out, and just relax. Leave everything behind. Just go and try to relax and try to process. Call me if you need me. Just have 7 days of nature. And Miss
Mm,
Marlene, I was so in peace there. I was so peaceful. I was so not anxious. I was so not worried. And then I was like that for, like, after we came, I was okay for like a week. And then the news started again. And then all of these things. And I'm like, oh my God. So, I cannot just sit behind and not let people know what can happen, right? To children. Again, we grown-ups, we know how to handle things. But to children, you have to protect them, and not just from the pew 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 whatever. You have to protect them from themselves, because if you don't do that, they grow up like me. And I don't mean in a bad way. I mean, they grow up with all this anxiety, with all this lack of, um, I don't know, future plans, lack of trust. You grow up feeling that the food can leave you any minute, that you have to be the one always on top of things. You learn that you have to do everything yourself, because you learn in that country that nobody helps you when you're in trouble, like real, real trouble, right? Every man for itself. So you learn all these things, and the uncertainty of life, and the uncertainty of family sometimes too, because a lot of times even other family members will give up one of their own, because they were with the other side, not with the military, but with the other side that was fighting the military, and they will give him up, and these kids will get unalive. So you learn all of that, and then because of that, you don't even trust family now as a young child,
mm,
right? So we have to protect them. I think that that's the one thing that we don't hear about, is how it affects you from that age to your adult life, to adulthood. What does it do for you? And now, for my children, I had to protect them so much. I wanted to make sure that nothing was missing for them, as far as food and feelings, motivation and opportunities. And sometimes you go overboard to make sure that they never feel as low, as little, as insignificant as you did for those 12 years.
Miss Nixie, I wanted to share something that I put in the chat a little while ago, when you were talking about some of those, like, because you didn't have food, then you get so much food, or you didn't have clothes, or whatever it is that you were lacking at that time.
Hmm.
When that time period ends, I can now, it starts to make sense why people get into hoarding, or people,
Yes.
yeah, people, or people get into like excesses, like they weren't able to be a child, and you wonder why you have this person who's like 57 years old acting like a teenager, because at the time when they were a teenager, maybe they didn't get to be a teenager. It's a
Yes,
lot
ma'am.
of things that people act the way they act, and people will raise an eyebrow, but you don't know what that person has gone through.
Yep. And that's the thing, Miss Marlene. Many times, even as you're living the day by day, right, on this, and you, let's say your dad comes visit and he's going back to, home to our hometown, and I'm staying here. Even saying goodbye to your parents or your siblings, whatever, you don't think you're gonna see them again. In your head, you're literally saying goodbye for good, because that's what it that's what the word does to you. You don't think that you're gonna have all these people in your life anymore. So when you say, hey, I'm leaving and goodbye, and you hug them and kiss them, you just say goodbye. You don't say I'll see you later. I had to learn that here, Miss Marlene. As I
Wow.
started, coming to this country, I'll see you later, because I never said that, because I knew that that wasn't possible, that sometimes that will be impossible, right? Because I didn't know if they were going to be gone that night or if something was going to happen on their way home. So you always said your goodbyes, like if that was your last day.
Oof. Ah. How do Miss Nexie? But how does the adult you unpack that on a day to day basis? That you know, I know it may sound crazy to some, but how do you wake up and not feel like you're not at war right now,
Oh,
or how do
oh,
you feel like you're safe?
it took me years, Miss Marlene. I can tell you, it took me about 20 years of being in this beautiful country to feel safe, because again, I wasn't tackling this with my, therapist. I didn't want to talk about it. And he said, you're going to have to. You have to. You're going to have to. He didn't say you're gonna, because he's very educated, but he says
Yeah.
you're going to have to, because it's something that it's you. It's personal. It's in you. That's something you lived, and still creates trauma. It took me many, many years to, because the first year or two when I was here, I will wake up every morning and where am I? Where am I at? Oh, I'm so and so place. Okay. Sometimes I will get lost in the room, like, well, where's the exit? Because you were so used to, hey, if something happens, run this way, right? So I found myself doing that a lot, and buying a lot of food and putting it in boxes and have them ready, because your mind was still there. I had to get used to the fact that no, you don't have to. There's food here aplenty. There is jobs, because people lost their jobs over there, lost homes that were taken away from them so that, the other side could live there. Sometimes even the military had to get, houses nearby so they could go in and out. And so a lot of people didn't have. So I started like overbuying things and saving them for the first 2 to 3 years, and buying an excessive amount of clothing, because I wanted to make sure, just if something happened, even though when I came here, Miss Marlene, I came legally. My mother had put in papers for me when I was a minor. And so even though they didn't get him as a minor because it's a process, I came here already with that I was a minor when they applied. So even though I was an adult when they came out, I qualify. So I came here legally, but I still didn't believe that I was okay. I didn't believe that I wasn't at war because I was at war with myself. The war
Mhm.
within is the one thing that it takes a very long time to get rid of and to tame and to not forget, because you never forget what happens, but to not give it a priority in your head, in your heart. And that's what I'm saying, that I had to start working on that in order for my heart to soften and to allow people in,
Mhm.
because you lose that beautiful thing of yours, which sometimes you have to be ruthless because it's the only way you're going to eat, right? Sometimes you have to be um, despicable and steal fruits from somebody's tree because you got nothing else to give your family. So, all of those things, um, they were so embedded in me, Miss Arlene, that it took me a very long time to let go of it and to understand that I was in a safe place, that I was in a beautiful country that was going to give me opportunity, that I was going to allow me to heal, that I was in a country where they will protect my constitution. Well, they will do anything to protect, its people. And so it took me a while, and now I think that what's happening, because of everything that is going on, is triggering that in me, and those fears, that what if I go back to not allowing people to get close to me? What if I go back to there's no food around, should I buy? I start going there, and my anxiety is been triggered so much this past year. My anxiety is over the roof. I already had a method that I will use to control it, because I don't like to take anxiety medication. I don't like anxiety medication. I don't. But I had a coping mechanism to work on it, and I will be able to kind of calm it. Right now, I now I'm working on something, but I this months ago I didn't know how it was getting out of control for me. And that's when my therapist says we have to, because what's happening, he goes, this that is going on here is triggering your past, so you have to work on it in order for you to be okay, and understand that you're safe, that you don't have to go anywhere because you're safe here. Because I was already thinking, like, should I go somewhere else? I was so scared, and I am so scared. But he says, we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna work on this. And but the little child, Miss Marlene, the little teenage, no,
Mhm.
preteen, in me was came out, and is here right now. But I'm working on it. I'm working on becoming the adult that I was, and not be so anxious and so negative, because you become that person. You become very negative, like, we're gonna throw this part, no, we're not. Who even knows if we're gonna survive by tomorrow? And you become that person. And I don't want to, and I'm getting all this sleepless nights, and this anxiety, and these thoughts, and I can see the bodies. I can
Mhm.
put it this way, Miss Marlene. We were going home to my dad when a group, my sister, my brother in law, and my two nieces were with me, because my sister raised me. And we were going from the capital to my town, which is about 2 hours away, because I'm borderline with Guatemala. It's a little town called Acajutla. It's a beautiful beach. It's a protocol for the country. So we're going there to visit dad, because we have not seen dad. We haven't heard, because phone lines are dead. We don't have communication, Miss Marlene. The mail, if you were lucky, you could get a letter through. If not, you couldn't. You were in no communication whatsoever. So my sister's worried. My brother in law says, okay, they're going to cease fire for this week. We can go. So we're going there, and then all of the sudden, as we're turning, almost getting towards the end of going to the next town, this group of men in dark everything and face cover with bandanas and whatever, they stopped us, and they had these huge rifles, and it was like a group of 20 that they stopped the bus because we were going on a bus, and they take us out, and the bus driver is freaking out because there's children here, there's young kids, and so we get out. My brother-in-law grabs one of the youngest baby, and he holds her, and then my sister grabs me and my other niece, and then they pull us over, they tell us to go face the wall, and we're all there, and you cannot cry, you cannot be disrespectful, you got to do what they say, right? Because if not, you're not going to make it. So we get there, and the bus driver is asking these people, like, is there anything you need? What can I do for you? Right? Because he's freaking out. And the guys are like, just tell everyone to empty their pockets. We want the money. And people are like, some people don't have any money, right? So they started emptying their pockets, and every little money that they had, it was taken from them, but our lives were not. Imagine as a child living that, Miss Marlene. And the worst thing, as we got on the bus, because the bus driver moved, because the guy told him, move your bus over there to the end and don't come out, stay there. And so the bus driver moved the bus. We're over here by the wall. My sister and everybody is there. And my sister is not moving because, like, she doesn't have any pockets, right? And she has a little purse. And the guy is like, hey, your purse, empty it. And my sister is all nervous and trying to empty the purse. She does, and there's nothing there, just her little lip gloss and change or whatever. And he's like, what about that change? And my sister's like, you can have it. I just didn't know it was there. I remember that part. My sister got really nervous, and she looked at me and kind of like, be quiet, right? Don't say anything. And so as we're going towards the bus, after they searched us and took all the money, we're going towards the bus, and my sister said, don't turn around, because I was gonna, I wanted to look, but she says, don't look, don't turn around, keep on going, keep on going. But me being, a teenager, nobody tells me what to do, right? As we got on the bus, my sister was covering my niece's eyes and everything, and she was trying to cover mine, but I wouldn't let her. So when we went on the bus, probably like probably like 500 feet, 600 feet from where they had us, it was a little dent, and there were three heads, Miss Marlene, three heads, three decapitated. Yeah, on a spike, on three spikes. I don't know how they did that, but they were there. And my sister was crying and so nervous, and I saw them, and I was like, because I've never seen that before. And then I regretted not listening to my sister, not to look there. So you go through that every day, every other day for years and years and years. It turns you into a very skeptical, very distrusting, very negative person.
But Nexie, but you can't help that. That's
No,
the
you can't.
thing.
You
Because
can't.
the thing that nobody that you haven't said yet is that you were in survival mode.
Yes,
And the thing is that we really don't understand now I don't have to be in survival mode anymore.
exactly. And a lot of times, because you're in survival mode, you any little attack on you sends you, like, it puts you in fear. Any little thing that happens, you're in constant war inside yourself. Even now, Miss Marlene, even now, I hear a commotion somewhere, you know I go into, oh my god, what's happening, something's gonna happen. I go into this mode of anxiety crazy lady and protecting everyone, and it's not even my problem. But anything is, it's in survival mode. I'm in that mode every day because you have to protect you. So I'm always in that mode, not as much as I was when I was in my country, but I am always on that survival mode type of mood. I'm always thinking like, if anything happens, I'm always thinking like, oh my god, is this gonna create something else? Oh my god, they're gonna come and attack. You know what I mean? Like all those things go through my mind every time something small happens or something triggers it. You go back to that survivalist, I should say, that it came to this country and is here now, and it's trying to do her best.
And
You're
you
always
are,
there.
and you are Miss Nexie, and I honestly want to thank you for your bravery and courage to talk about what you shared today, because um I have never seen any of the things that you have seen, or been through any of the things that you have been through. So you sharing this paints kind of like a visual, like, and causes me to take a step back, and to not be judgmental, because like I said, working in the healthcare field, and I see people who have mental illness, and I see people who have PTSD, and most of the time we're very judgmental. Oh, they just need to learn how to cope, or they just need a vacation or something like that. But you don't know what they've seen or
Hmm.
carried in their mind.
Because before it wasn't spoken of. Like, look how long it's taking me. I'm 35 years old now. Look at how long it's taking me to speak of that monstrosities that we saw
Mm.
during those 12 years, or how vile human beings can be to one another, how um, people that were family to you can literally betray you in the drop of a hat.
Mm.
I saw a lot of um, injustices, especially to the people, like the rural people, like the ones that don't have the education sometimes that other people have. They got robbed, they got unalive, they got taken advantage of. They their farms and things like that sometimes were taken and gone because you know the extremists had to have it so that they can feed their people. So a lot of things like that, and you become very um pessimistic. You become that person that you dislike so much. Sometimes that aunt that you don't like because she's so pessimistic, you become that person going through a war. The one thing I couldn't do was voice it, which is why I asked if it was okay for me to do this. I know there's no politics here, we don't talk about that, but I wanted it to voice it because you know I see the things that are going out around outside of this country, in other countries. I see the children, the way they look. That's the look I had. I had that, deer in headlights look, because I was so stressed
Mhm.
out. I was super skinny, pale, and everything. We were all like that, super fearful of everything. What if, like, the good nights were, good nights, and in your heart, you didn't know if that person was going to be there the next day because of, all the pew, pew, pew all over the place. And there were families that had been, sometimes eating, and one of those pew, pew, pews will go there and kill them, So you always, I'm sorry, unalive them. I keep on saying that word, but I'm sorry about that, Miss Marlene. But
It's okay. It's no problem.
so you're very cynical sometimes too, like when people offer you sometimes things, friendship and everything, because you come from that, I don't believe you anymore, because so many years of lies and betrayals and everything. You start like, yeah, right, you're gonna do that for me, whatever. And again, even in my marriage, I was like, okay. Here we go. That's what we're doing. And I wasn't, healed enough to say, hey, you know what, this is beautiful. We're gonna have family. It's gonna be a beautiful life forever and ever, right? As we think when we go into marriage. I wasn't thinking that. It was more like, okay, if it lasts, it's good, and if it doesn't, then oh well. I'm gonna be
Mm,
okay. I already survived a war, so I'm okay. I'll be okay. And to this day, I'm still like that. Whatever happens, I take it in strides. I don't care. Whatever happens, happens, right? I'm going to deal with it as it happens. If it happens, I'm going to deal with it the best way I can. But the anxiety of getting there, it's what it's triggering even more anxiety because I know what can happen. I know what comes if anything happens. I know what's going to happen to all of us. So that's why I was like, I'm going to ask Miss Marlene if it's okay for me to, talk and go into this and hopefully more people are going to voice, what the word did to them or a word did to them because you're constantly there. You're constantly in war with you, with yourself every day of your life. You're constantly there, and you have to kind of like, those cars that they have the stick shift. That's how
yeah.
what I think about me. I have to shift sometimes into, okay, don't be, this person, you don't know her or know him, it's fine, but don't be so cynical. Allow this person to prove you wrong first, right? Don't go there. And I have to constantly tell myself, it's another day. It's good. I'm here. I'm safe. I'm okay. And this is, this year has been even more than before. It's triggering more. And I have to constantly be telling myself, you can trust them. It's okay. You're safe. Nothing's going to happen. And but I would love for more people to talk about their experiences because I think that that's a good way to heal, and it's a good way to say out loud what your head is constantly thinking. And I think that by saying it out loud and sending it to the universe, your heart, your mind, and your whole being rests a little bit.
Yeah. And Miss Nexie, this is you sharing it many, many years post war, right? But
Yes.
but also at the same time, Miss Nexie, do you think that you were open to share because you're a woman?
Uh yeah. You know what? I think so. I think so because even the men in our family, they don't. Ah, it was a word, and that's it. They don't share.
Hmm. I
They
don't know
don't
why
really
that just
share.
came to my mind, Miss Nexie, but that's what that's what came to my mind. And Miss Nexie, it literally breaks my heart for men who suffer the same thing. I can't say the same because everybody deals with things differently, but seeing the same things, but were always taught that they had to pull back and they got to be tough and they got to be strong, even though they told you that as a woman. But for men, it's different. They never get to relax.
Hmm.
So,
See, they never get to that, and sometimes they even hinder their own healing because they don't want to talk about their fears, their insecurities, their what happened to them in the war because men were more at risk than we girls were because they were being the ones recruited whether they wanted it or not, one side or the other, because it was a civil war. What do? You are your people. Yeah, you want to defend, but against what? Against our people? Like, what the heck is wrong with you? Right. And I think that because it was a civil war, I think that's why it's triggering a lot of things, in me.
yes, Miss Nixie, I can't even imagine. I was looking to see if there was anybody who left a comment, but I don't see any comments in the comment section. So I want to say, Miss Nixie, that I thank you so much for your transparency, your honesty, your courage, because it's not easy to unpack and to say the things that you have seen and endured for 12 years of it happening, but then the after effects, like living with that.
Yeah, exactly, Miss Marlene. And living with that, the post war, right, results are different on everybody. Some children that were babies at that point, because this happened, the Civil War started in 1979. It ended in 1992. So kids that were born within, in which, Miss Marlene, by the way, the hospitals had been blown up. So, you know what I mean? You had to deliver
Mhm.
at home. um for the ladies that were, but those kids, even though they were born and they were born into it. They didn't have peace before and then war. They were born into war. It affects them very differently because that's all they've known. Yeah, they have fear, or yeah, they panic, but they don't know anything else but that. Us that had peacetime before and had a wonderful life before, when we come to this, to what's happening, you literally lose it. You lose everything that you have had and learned until then. You lose everything, even your identity, what made you you. You lose that. It gets robbed, it gets stolen from you. But those babies, I ask them sometimes, hey, do you remember? Oh yeah, it doesn't affect me though. I'm okay. And I'm thinking, I understand why, because they grew up in that. That was their life.
No, that was their norm.
Their
Like,
norm. There you go. It wasn't any different, any better, any nothing, because that's all they knew. And they were
isn't
okay
that
with it, and they
sad?
are okay with it.
Isn't that sad? And I
It
think,
is.
Miss Lexi, it's a protection mode. It's a protection mechanism. In order that you don't lose your mind, you just tell yourself this is how it's supposed to be.
Hmm. Yeah, this is how it is, and you got to deal with it, right? Is there's no comfort. But Miss Marlene, those kids that again were born in the middle of the war, they're not as damaged as we are because they didn't have the understanding we did, right?
Mhm.
So we were already in the process of understanding life because we were already in our teens and learning, and we were already developing what we were going to become. That hindered everything. But these kids, they that was their norm. And by the time they were teenagers, the war was over. So they were able to experience this, the teenage years, and enjoy life and whatever. So we didn't get that. We didn't get that. That was taken from us. By the time it ended, we were already adults, sometimes with kids and families, right? And so for me, having had a normal life up to the point where this started, it messed me up even more because I knew that this wasn't normal. So I didn't know when normal was going to come back. And I didn't expect it to come back. I didn't have it. Like, again, it lasted for so long that I didn't have any hopes for anything ever changing, or anything ever being okay with the world around me. And it's something that it messes with you until, I think, the day that you go out of this world. Is something that stays with you, and it in your core. It's nothing you can do. You cannot get it out because now it's peacetime. No, you're at war with that, within you all your life. You are that child of war. So, in order for us not to repeat those mistakes of the past, we need to learn to treat children that are in the middle of that war as if they have been there for many, many years. Get therapy for them as the war is going on. Make sure that they are safe, that they're protected, that they understand that this is not normal, that they don't have to take this as it's okay to do this because that's what they want. So they don't lose their humanity, their hopes and their dreams. I feel that if they would have done that, in the past with us, we wouldn't be so messed up because we would have been able to understand the reason why this was going on, and that it wasn't something that it was going to be permanent, and that we should not lose our humanity, our love, our understanding of people, and we shouldn't hold any grudges towards the perpetrators of this. So all of that, I think that if we do that, if we implement, protection for children and helping them understand, I think we're gonna get better, more healthy minded adults, not like us that are so damaged by it.
Yes, Miss Nexie. I couldn't agree more. There has to be more conversations, and that's one of the reasons why we do the sip and chat, to talk about many different topics. Like, there's a lot of things to unpack. There's a lot of things to heal. Many conversations that we need to have, and I always want to thank you so much for what you bring to the sip and chat. Today's conversation, I couldn't really share much because I have not been a child of war. But what I can do is um, show respect for you. I have a different level of respect for you, a different level of strength and courage for you as a woman. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that I can say Miss Nexie is my friend.
Thank you, Miss Marlene. And I don't do this for sympathy, for empathy, or for clicks. I do it because we're at a time right now, Miss Marlene, that having a friend like you, coming from where I came from, never thinking that I was going to be there, having someone like this that allows me to be me, that shares her platform with me when I want to talk about things that probably make her a little bit uncomfortable. Having someone like that gives you and gives you that friendship, and that allows you that space, is something that I never saw myself having, and I'm blessed enough to be living it in this amazing country.
Yes.
So I thank you too, and I'm very, very grateful, very proud of who you are as well, and how much you have overcome in life. Maybe you weren't a baby of war, but you had a war within you that none of us sometimes can understand what it was, because you
Yeah.
were fighting it alone.
Well,
And
I
here you are.
feel I feel like this topic this week was about you, really. And I feel like next week I want to do that, talk about, war within the family,
Hmm.
like
Yes, ma'am.
talking about those things, like not a physical, but sometimes when you get the mental wars.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to. And again, misunderstandings happens in every family, right? We have those relatives who are like, "Oh my god, they're coming." Oh, okay,
Mhm.
fine, I deal with them. But when you are at war with the family, that you're not respecting each other, you're enemies with each other, you're doing things to each other that are not considered family like, those things, we have to address them, we have to fix them. And maybe by talking about those topics, as Marlene, like we say, the word within, the families and us, maybe by doing this, they can hear, and they can heal, and they can learn a little bit on life is so short and so precious, and it's been given to us. Why not enjoy it to your fullest? And family is something that sometimes you need.
Yeah. And then Miss Nexie, and then sometimes a family is the ones that you create.
Exactly. is what you need. You need family, whether it's, blood or created. Family is what we need. And biological family doesn't necessarily, because I've known people that are more family to me and I have in my life than my own family, right?
Yeah.
Not my sisters or my brothers, but my extended family. They're more family like that, because I get along very well with my sisters and my brothers. They're more like reserve and stuff. They're not as crazy as us girls, but we we have that friendship. I have, and I wanted to tell you this. I have my older sister, which is the one that was responsible for all of us when my mom left. She raised us. She's beginning to open up about her feelings and everything. And I'm so
Mm,
happy that she's doing that because I've been pushing that. I've been pushing and I bring things up and I make her talk about it because her life was the hardest because she was the oldest.
mm. Wow. I can't
Yeah.
imagine that, Miss Nexie. So we're gonna pause here until next week, and we'll pick up talking about some. I'll think of a title
I think
that
you
will
just
be a
said it.
good. Yeah, I'll think
Family
of
at war.
yeah, family at war. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you already did. You just don't know it yet, but I think it's
I just don't
there.
know it yet, right?
Yes, thank you for having me, Miss Marlene, again. Everyone, please don't forget to hit the like. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Please, please, please. And if you see it on the replay, leave a comment. Leave something nice for Miss Marlene. She deserves at least that. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone,
so
for coming.
much. Thank you so much, everybody. This is Love Marlene 411, your channel for trauma healing of relationships, anything that is heavy on your heart. That's what we talk about over here on the Sip and Chat. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you. And we will tune in again next week, same time.
Same
Bye,
time as
everybody.
Hey James. I had to say
Yeah. Hey, James.
chat because if I do, then I get distracted and I lose track. But hi, everyone. Even though I didn't say hi to you guys in the very beginning, hi, thank you for coming. We love you all. Okay, Miss
Aw.
Marlene, thank you for having me, and I'll see you. Well, we'll do the sip and chat next week, but I'll talk to you in a minute.
Okay. Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.